What's going on there, YouTube, and welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, guys, so we are basically going to continue our coverage over the Reign of X era of X-Men comics, and we actually do pick up with X-Men number 17. Now, this is the first X-Men book we are going to cover after doing the X of Swords crossover event. As a matter of fact, this is the beginning of the end of Jonathan Hickman's run on the X-Men, because after a few more books, he actually leaves the X-Men titles behind in the wind. And so, of course, it's him saying, let me wrap up a few things, but also kind of plant seeds for future things down the road as well that could possibly be done by him down the road or another writer down the road. Now, when it comes to X-Men number 17, it's all about the daughter of Charles Xavier. And of course, that is Xandra. Now, before we actually dive into the idea of who is the daughter of Charles Xavier, which is Xandra, I do want to mention how the way the book opens up. And the way the book opens up is basically talking about how you have all these different galaxies out there that kind of make up the universe, the main Marvel universe. Now, with that being said, out in those different galaxies, you do have different empires out there, which of course kind of take over different areas of the universe. So like the Kree of Skrulls, the Shi'ar Empire, and the list goes on and on and on. Now, with that being said, one of the most powerful empires, or probably the most powerful empire in the Marvel universe, is basically the Shi'ar Empire. Now, originally it was run by Xandra, but she has been gone for a long period of time. Now, Xandra was the ex-fling of Charles Xavier, but of course, with their love, they made a child, which is Xandra. Now, Xandra is the one in charge of the Empire now, but of course, she was being trained by her aunt, Deathbird. Now, the reason why I'm bringing her up right now is because she has gone missing. And that right there is huge because, again, Xandra is the new queen of the Shi'ar Empire, the daughter of Charles Xavier. Now, of course, you actually have Deathbird call up the X-Men. Now, of course, remember, Deathbird used to be an X-Men villain, and she is the sister of Xandra, which makes her the aunt of Xandra, and I guess the sister-in-law to Charles Xavier. Now, with all that being said, of course, Deathbird became good, because remember, this storyline is Jonathan Hickman wrapping up what he did in New Mutants. And what I mean is that at the very beginning of Dawn of X, and I really hated this, but of course we had no choice. When it came to Dawn of X, when it came to New Mutants in Dawn of X, the earlier books kept jumping back and forth between two different storylines. So for example, you might read issue 1, 3, and 5, that will be one storyline, but 2, 4, and 6 will be a different storyline written by a different writer. And so Jonathan Hickman wrote a couple books in the New Mutant storyline, and so he's using this book right here as a way to wrap up what he was doing in that storyline over there. But either way though, this is Deathbird calling up the X-Men and saying, hey, listen, I need your help. Like, Xandra is missing. Now, of course, this is also continuing the idea that the X-Men and the Shi'ar Empire, they have a close bond. And matter of fact, this bond goes all the way back in Chris Claremont days in the X-Men in the 70s and the 80s. But either way, though, you do have Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Storm down to help find Xandra. Because again, this is the daughter of Charles Xavier. Now, of course, you do have Storm, Jean Grey, and Cyclops arrive to the main planet of the Shi'ar Empire. Now, the reason why I say the main planet is because when it comes to this empire particularly, it's made up of a bunch of different races across the universe. So, for example, when it comes to the Skrulls and the Kree, well, of course, that's just two races put together. But when it comes to the Shi'ar Empire, you're talking about a lot of different races making up this empire, and that actually shows when it comes to their Imperial Guards. Now remember, Imperial Guards are kind of like the best warriors in the Shi'ar Empire, but of course they protect the queen or king of the empire. Now with all that being said though, of course right now, the reason why I'm telling you all of this is because you have Jean Grey actually trying to read the minds of everybody who could have possibly been there when Xandra was abducted. Now, of course, Jean Grey is an Omega level mutant. She's able to read minds just like that. And so, of course, she was able to find out there was one person who might know something about what happened to Xandra. Now, you do have Cyclops and Storm kind of knock that person out, but when they do, you have another guard tell Deathbird that apparently this person is actually a Stygion. I really hope I pronounced that correctly. It could be Stygion. I'm going to say Stygion. But either way, though, this particular alien race, of course, really bothers Deathbird for a particular reason. Now, that is the moment we come to find out who is the bad guy of the book. And of course, the bad guy of the book is no other than Yor. Now, when it comes to Yor, he's only going to appear in this book when it comes to Reign of X, what I read so far. I could be wrong. But either way, though, when it comes to Yor, apparently his race is one of the many races that made up the Shi'ar Empire. Now, with that being said, though, of course, most of his race was killed off, including his brother. And so, of course, this is Yor just coming right back to get revenge against Xandra and her family. Because, of course, when it comes to Xandra, she is the daughter of Illyandra, but Illyandra and Xandra, they were not the first ones in their family to take the throne. You had other people before them in their family take the throne. But this is just Yor getting his revenge against Xandra, even though Xandra never did anything to him. It's just him saying, I'm finally going to get revenge for the death of my people, even though you're not the one for the cause of the death of my people. Now, of course, the X-Men were able to actually locate Yor and, of course, Xandra as well. And so with that being said, you actually do have the X-Men begin to fight against Yor. Now, when it comes to them fighting against Yor, of course, at first, it does seem like maybe our heroes will have the edge because there is more of them than him right now. You have Storm. You also have Jean Grey. You have Cyclops. Now, you also have Smasher as well. Now, Smasher is a character that actually Jonathan Hickman made back when he was doing Avengers and New Avengers. And when it comes to Smasher, she is one of the few Imperial guards, but also she is from Earth. And she's the only Earthling who's actually an Imperial guard, which is actually huge because I want to say she was the first person from Earth to be an Imperial guard for the Shi'ar Empire, which is a huge thing to take up. But either way, though, you do have her, Storm, Cyclops, and Jean Grey working together to fight against Yor as a way to save Xandra. Now, of course, after a few pages, our heroes just can't do it. They can't win. And so that is the moment you actually do have Smasher call up her husband, which is Cannonball. Now, Cannonball and Smasher do have a roommate, and that is Sunspot. Now, remember, these two guys, they're best friends. But on top of that, they have been around for a very long time. When it came to New Mutants, they were one of the first two characters we met in that book. Cannonball and Sunspot. Now, of course, the reason why she's calling up Cannonball is because, again, they're married and they have a child together, but also they have been working on something together. And of course, you do have Cannonball being able to get the phone away from Sunspot so that he'll be able to make a call. And of course, the call he made was, of course, a bunch of other Smashers. Now, of course, these Smashers are training to become Imperial Guards just like the main Smasher. And so, of course, with this army of Smashers, Storm, Jean Grey, and also Cyclops, they were actually able to defeat Yor, but to also save Xandra as well. And so, of course, the day is saved. Now, the story does get wrapped up very easily because it is Jonathan Hickman just wrapping up loose ends from his run on New Mutants because, of course, he's trying to set up other things down the road. But with that being said, though, you do have the X-Men being able to actually take Xandra back to, of course, her throne room for her to sit on her throne. Now, with that being said, of course, this was a learning moment for Xandra because remember, she is the daughter of Charles Xavier. She is very young, but of course, she's a young queen trying to learn how to run her empire. And so, of course, she's going to make mistakes, but of course, she has to fix her own mistakes, but also the folks before her mistakes as well. And so, of course, it's a very hard time for her to learn because, again, she's a young girl. But either way, though, you do have Xandra tell Storm that, hey, listen, I owe you one, because Storm was the one who actually did defeat Yor. And so it's kind of like Xandra saying, Storm, you might get something in return, or I might help you again down the road, which of course for Jonathan Hickman, that could possibly happen. But either way though, this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.